Are we really live? Are we really live right now? Uh, did I write tonight is your lucky night? I don't know. Maybe it's just a fun night, but we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it interesting, all right? We're gonna make it like never you've seen my videos to be so interesting before. Hopefully, can I do this? Oh my god, where do I start, man? Because I got a lot of things here. And you know me, I'm kind of spontaneous, and right now I'm looking through my pictures and I'm like, okay, what's this thing right here? Right, these are the tube cells. I mean, it could have been a little bit better constructed, but what these are is one aluminum wire and one copper wire dipping into oxide. Like the first one on the left looks to me to be iron oxide, the second one is zinc oxide, the third one is copper oxide, the fourth one is also copper oxide, the fifth copper oxide, the sixth copper, seven copper, and then five in a row of zinc, and then one as a special copper, the other one is zinc, and the two pink ones, or the five pink ones, is like a real special copper one. Now they could have had gold, could have had silver, could have had, I don't know, germanium, germanium, like they make diodes. And all these have different effects, and they could be used in multiple purposes. But in this particular instance, they all serve one in common and multiple ones, and the one in common is they produce electricity. So in this particular case, the way that they're plugged, if they're all in series, would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. About 9 volts, and that's pretty much what I would remember about this stacker. Would be about that, 9 volts. That's very interesting. Now the thing is about these things, it's part of an alchemy. And it's part of a physical alchemy of nanotechnology. It's part of all sorts of different effects on ionic fields, electron fields, conductivity, their heating properties, pressure properties, the mass of atomic structure. I mean, these things, each one of them has a combination of geometry, of structure within its form, which basically is a universal language of the universe. And I am not joking about this. We are talking about here a knowledge so advanced that it makes orgone devices and psychotronics and all sorts of energy devices look like they were child's play compared to the understanding that I have gained through working with these elements through the years. And the intuitive aspects on consciousness and the understanding of the symbology of geometry and the philosophical and engineering standpoints of them. And trust me, hopefully your consciousness is getting glimpses of principles that are kind of important. These is something very simple that I made, but I made it to give you an example on the most basic levels of how to make new series, we could say, of devices. These I call the calling cards. Now this would be, in a way, the name of it would be a dual spiral, right, dielectric capacitor. That's what it is. On the bottom, on one piece of paper, in this case I would have preferred something else than paper, but it's what I used it for. It's still okay to work with. And I put aluminum tape, and then I place a Kapton tape yellow on top of it, and then I placed aluminum tape on top of it in we could say a specific configuration. Now, there's more than one configuration that can be done about this one. This one is in a way, you could say, if you look at it, you'll come to understand it's a specific configuration that basically needs to be tested for all its benefits. And the beauty of that, okay, is because I don't want to just, I would have made it even more simpler if I wanted to bring an explanation to it. But in this particular case, let's say you put a LED light in the center, and you have this serves as your two connections to it. You would have one connection and it will have a potential of a dielectric field or a pulsing that could be tapped out of it, and the other pole, well, it would not have that dielectric principle onto it. Now, by doing it in the two different configuration or four different configuration, we could come to understand where we tap into the energy, and that will give us a more broad reference on what is truly going on the inputs and outputs of this device. Long story short, this is to show you that you could do this in multiple geometries, and because it's made with this Kapton tape, and a little, also you could add nanomaterials on the bottom of the tape, you can get the or the frequency resonance that you wish, even at light scale frequencies, which then again I won't dive into, but it opens the door to a more advanced application of this understanding. I remember in the beginning I was just looking at different configurations and logical systems. I didn't really kind of completely understood. I just knew that these systems would serve me a purpose into configurizing and understanding a super advanced polarization of a complex engineering systems, but starting at its most rudimental aspects. Now, a certain configuration I kept into making certain devices because of their geometry and practicality into the designs I was making. Now you see, this is a connection that you do between two pluses of two different systems, and by utilizing this method of just transferring energy while lighting up a load, you can actually distribute your energy and with step-up converters always be gaining voltage instead of losing it. And in a way you're converting amp hours into volt hours. That is one way of doing it, and then you're reconverting the volt hours into amp hours through the capacitors. It's a play of energy to come to always have power, and you charge it while using less power or more power if needed. Anyways, these yet again is just a design so you can understand how to make these devices and how to plug them yourself. So I always show something basic so you get the understanding of it, and then you can apply it to bigger systems, because this is scalable. Now the tube cells, and again, these light up LED lights. They have about, total something around like 50 millivolts to, well, actually 25 millivolts to 50 millivolts, and any voltage that you want, and you don't need to charge them; they just work. Now, there's different ways of making them with different oxide, but yet again, it's very simple. This model actually lasted for years, but there was, I didn't use the right well, actually, I took it apart to try other models, and then I basically have to redo a whole big stacker of these, and I would already be rich if I would have made it. It's not a question of money for me. It's a question of, do you want us to create uh, through it, because it allows us to have advanced knowledge and apply it in the wisest of ways and the most creative of ways without needing to copy anybody else. It's a tool of knowledge for the sovereignty of mankind. Now you see this, in this case it's showing actually a lot more power. I'm not actually understanding the measurement I'm getting here because it's a bit too high. Because it's not volts here, it's amps, and I'm getting 200 milliamps, and I don't remember that. Okay, to me this should be more like 20 milliamps. So maybe that's what it is. But the way it's set, it shows to be 200. Okay, so something strange there. There's all sorts, because of creativity, I created all sorts of new coils. This is a bifilar donut coil, which you could say is that I invented, but basically, nature invented it. And look at this, I'm getting voltage. And this is actually represents 0.158 of a volt. So it's not 1 volt, it's less than a volt, but it's not supposed to be producing energy. Some call this a living coil, and a living coil is just alive on its own because of the way that it's built. The manual copper wire that's wrapped around the aluminum wire is creating a dielectric field, and the field potential of the element of aluminum and copper is creating this voltage, and the separation of the materials by the magnetical iron around the copper wire is creating the separation, and the plastic that's on it is creating the dielectric separator that's needed to do this. And I'm getting excited because this is all stuff that has never been recreated in the way of the understanding. And it's exciting stuff. It's powerful because it's all new. Now, okay, why did I do this one? I don't remember. Okay, this is a bifilar coil. Okay, argon devices. I brought that to a next level. The pyramid you're seeing was made with a 3D printer, and while it was printing, I was lacing onto it oxide of nanomaterials. So you could visualize it as layers like of paper, but at the same time on the paper there's layers of oxide of gold, of silver, of zinc. And I tried to place it in the gradient, but this thing could be done in so many ways. It's Argon Devices 101, 10,000 years in advance. Even though it doesn't look like it, it's all-in-one encompassing creation, which means it inspires coiling in geometries, and it inspires the next generation of layering, of nano layering, and layering of materials in 3D printing. Which, when I made this, I came up with the concept of how to layer it in the shell of cars and all sorts of stuff, which to this day the society has not copied that yet. So I'm talking about it because it's the next step. You might as well do it all. So in this particular case, This was a pretty advanced, it's a pretty advanced device, relooping onto itself, 100% self-sustainability, and I explained that in other videos. It's called a dual buck converter. The the conversion of the amperage back into voltage keeps the device up in voltage for very long periods, which defies the laws of that we know. So there's a lot to confirm on this device, because I'm using in this particular case, a tube cell to reloop the energy to create the self-sustainability. And I need two step-up converters, because with one it never worked. But with two, I seem to have a dual frequency that I am able to echo back into itself by stepping up the voltage, which basically I'm stepping up the frequency and matching it back to the lower voltage frequency to compensate for the losses, which basically I kind of bent the laws of freaking nature on this one, because to all of you it was not possible. To me it was just a question of where would the energy come from. Would it come from the voltage going higher, or would it come from the potential energy that has an ion and plasmonic properties that can accentuate the alignment of the electrons and so on, or put them in a more quantum entangled way where it's consuming less energy, or having properties in which I could use the flow of electrons, and I could boost the flow with free voltage. And that's what I'm doing, because the voltage is free, because I'm not using amperage at the output of it. That means that I could use the voltage at any voltage without the losses of the gain, and converting back that into frequency through the capacitor, which can have multiple processes to make the reason why it worked. I could easily break step-up converters if I didn't do it right, and which was a pain in the butt, and I didn't have the financing to continue it. But it's a basic elemental device, and to be honest with you, I am freaking excited right now, because that thing, when it works in front of you, it defies the laws of physics, and you don't know. It changes everything about the room and the state you're in, because you're creating something it's not supposed to be, but it is. I managed, with that step-up converter, I managed to light this plasma ball and create heating on top of lighting lights. And to this day, I'm talking about it, and I can't even fathom that I did that. It's freaking amazing. It's crazy that I did that. Here I converted 2 cells, and I put them in a battery holder, which creates a battery, to see if it would work. It worked, but the amperage is so low that it's not practical at this level of development. So I would need to add 10 of these inside of this little container, which is all possible. I could add actually 1,000 of these. It's all possible. It's the future. That would mean it would equal 4.2 volts without needing charges with the amperage that you have in your battery right now. And that it will not happen unless you come together and we do it. It will take 100 years before this battery hits the market at the level that it can. And we could actually save the world and save the economy and save everything just through this energy system. But what I'm talking about is years of innovation on this. But those years could be reduced to 1 to 2 years with the collaboration of all our community of the Tree of Life. So, these are the projects of the Tree of Life. These are the projects that lead humanity to us developing the technology and us having the patents to it. Because knowledge is free. And it should be received freely, and it should be received so we can create together. And sorry for my intensity, but this video is going to be pretty intense. These devices are very powerful, and they are just the beginning. And the shape of them, the concept of it, is mind-blowing. So attach yourself to your chair, because even though it's not big stuff, it's simple stuff. Look at this. Look at this very carefully. The spiral cube. I invented so many different designs of making coils. That's pretty cool. Let's see what else. Now this I call the tower cell. This tower cell is made with a layering of a carbon gasket foil, which is basically graphite conductive kind of cardboard, with copper plates and aluminum tape and gold oxide, zinc oxide, copper oxide, or any of the oxide, layered in a way which is basically like a battery. But this battery doesn't need charging. This is the first big model of it. I actually made little models before, and then I stacked them together to make this bigger model. And this was supposed to be 20 volts. But I made it too fast. I skipped some corners. So I got 11 volts. Now, because of the material I was using to seal it, it wasn't good enough. This is supposed to be in resin, and I don't have funding to have the resin. But this is part of an argon device, you could say, that is pre-activated, energized. It's about 100 to 1,000 times more powerful than any argon device that is out there. This again represents free voltage, free energy flow, can be passed through any element, right? Can accentuate any geometry, can accentuate any of your intent. When I made this one, I made it in the same intent that I'm sharing here, in the light of creation, in the light that arose into myself in making it, in the good intent of the will of life to grow in the right direction. And that is truly the energy that is feeding back to my soul as I'm speaking. Because it's made in a certain way, it has its signature. It's made not to make money off of it. It's made not to become popular. It's made so we could understand things in a new way, which belongs to humanity, belongs to the universe, belongs to creation. It belongs to evolution. It belongs to growth. It belongs to life. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you. Creation has allowed this to be tools in our lives, but only through the consciousnesses that could make it the right tools. And at the end of the day, you want it to be the most ideal way, and the most ideal way is the spontaneous, authentic, creative, human way. It always comes on top because of the meaning and the influence of its ideal future for mankind. And that's consciousness that arose to that through a lot of hands to the dough, and to try to understand nature in all its ways. For the rest of infinity, we will understand these things in all the ways that it can, and we will tune them to the specific creation we wish to create. And I want to teach you more about that. I want to make workshops if everybody, and I'll make them free. Oh yeah. And I can make them in French and English and in person. Because the transmission is a one-to-one or on a